Well, and let me ask you a question along with that, really, to everybody. You know, Mike, you're talking about $100+ million in salaries, and that goes across the board. So you have tremendous expenses. You have to run your facilities, and outside of ticket sales and sponsorship that people think about, what are other revenue generators that you've been able to come up with? What are other big pieces of revenue that you use to pay those expenses or try to pay those expenses?
Well, you know, we and again, each league is different in terms of what you're able to do, and to that end. But you know, we have our relationship with Fox from a sports network, our regional cable entity that we work with as well, much like STO is for the Indians, and that's a significant source of revenue from an organizational. And you can look at it from a ticketing perspective. You have ticketing, and you have then with that not only the seats within the venue, but suites and club seats and other premium products that are tied with that, or business, you know, from that end, business development products along those lines, in addition to, you know, from a corporate sales or sponsorship or partnership end, where you have opportunities to work with the various corporate entities out there, create an impact by associating with the team in many multiple ways to be able to work on that front. Digital assets have become a major focus of our league and certainly our organization on that front, in terms of how you continue to, you know, as it has exploded in our daily lives with everything that's out there, but how do we tap into that space and that specter, from social networking with tabfanatic.com to whatever the case may be. So that's been a major growing piece on that front. And from merchandising, there's local market opportunities. You know, we have licensing arrangements with our leagues, but you have local retail opportunities that are associated on that front. And then with a venue like this, we try to keep it full. You know, so we have about 200 events that flow through here, whether it be concerts or whatever the case may be, in addition to the Lake Erie Monsters and the MAC tournament or whatever. Trying to, you know, there's a lot of these events that we have that aren't necessarily, and Dave, we work with you a lot on that front, that don't necessarily generate much in the way of revenue for us, but in terms of, you know, adding more value to the community, in terms of what that means, in terms of bringing people downtown and hotels and restaurants, it all applies into that as well.
I mean, the only thing I'd say, you know, when you talk about the basic revenue models, I think are probably the same. When you look at the sources for revenues, I think Major League Baseball has done a great job, which is somewhat frustrating on a team level, with Major League Baseball Advanced Media, which is, you know, all the web based properties for the teams. They do a fantastic job. At the point, it's become a business for other sports teams, for other businesses, their web design, their data control as well, and they share that revenue. So as more and more of the revenue shifts to the advanced media, you know, I think there'll be a greater, you know, fairness in the sharing of revenue. As it stands now, as Jim can tell you, you know, obviously the media contract for Yes Network in New York is going to be far different than STO with the Indians, and that's where some of the greatest disparities come in. So in the media issues, and then having the benefit of Vic and Ted drawing me in a recent discussion they were having coming back from meeting with one of our corporate sponsors. The world as it exists from a corporate sponsorship standpoint also may be evolving to the way we structure, you know, putting together deals, and the way they have to look at creating value for our corporate partners as well. So I think, again, creativity, maybe term length, and the way those things are structured are you know, have to be looked at differently just in today's economic climate.
Yeah. And I think echoing what these two guys had said is that the revenue sources are the same. The difference, the NFL has put these collectively together. So for us to do a regional or a cable deal, it's not going to be anywhere near there because we can't put the games on there. That's the largest piece in there. We can put ancillary programming, and we have a great relationship with STO, but it's not to the extent that you can actually put live games on there. So that is one of the challenges there. I mean, one of the things I'll talk about is we communicate quite a bit amongst the teams, and we try to, you know, pick each other's brains. There's no such thing as an original idea. But one of the things that we did with the Indians earlier this year was we got into a joint selling effort and tried to put together suites. And it was first, you know, cautiously approached. And the idea was, you know, these guys must really be struggling. But what we did was we thought we wanted to put a value pack together. So we included the suite against, you know, whether it was the home opener it was the Steelers. We put a certain amount of inventory aside and then put that in there. They had games against the Yankees and against the Reds that were their kind of games that probably would have sold, but we wanted to package them in there at an attractive price. And we had some success there, but those are the kind of things you want to start thinking outside the box, and whether it's in a radio relationship or some other type of deal out there, is there ways that the brands themselves can kind of work off one another, and we do that quite a bit.
Okay, 5 minutes. I'm going to ask a last question before I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions from the audience. Just tell me, what's been your toughest business decision since you've been in working in the world of sports?
You go first, Mike.
So I'm ready to go. Well, it's been a tough couple weeks. When you think about your toughest decision, I look at it in this way. I talked about it earlier. We have some challenging times with the economy. Our main goal is to make ticket prices affordable. We fight this battle all the time, and we're fortunate to have 55,000 season ticket holders. Well, what that means is that there are, close to 18,000 people or individual tickets that we have to sell on a game-by-game basis. We have 10 games, 2 preseason, 8 regular season, so it does become, a bit of a challenge. But for us to keep those ticket prices low, we get 31 other teams that are mad at us, and if we don't perform well on the field, well, then our fans say, well, there should be 32 or 33 out there. So for me, that's kind of been a bit of a challenging decision that I've had to face since I've come out here.
For me, it's easy to recall, and I would say it's more of a recommendation than a decision, because the ultimate decision lies with ownership. But when I got the fortune of becoming general manager, there were natural reasons why John Hart was stepping down and challenges that were on the horizon. I think I had a extremely tough leadership moment, and that moment alone, whether or not to trade Bartolo Colon, and what that would mean to every constituency, not just our fan base, but our players. The coaching staff, the people that work in our building, our entire market, and knowing the reality was that the day we made that trade, as necessary as it was, and from a pure business sense, as necessary as it was strategically, and as dark as a hole we could be going into if we didn't do it, that no one would understand, because people look at sports decisions only in black and white, not in nuanced tones. And there was a very real reason for make that, but the real reality was the next day we would not be as competitive. We would be moving into a different mode than we had been in for a long period of time, which I had been part of, 455 straight sellouts, and a lot of postseason trips and 2 American League championships. We would be shifting away from that, and it was recognizing that our entire operational model had changed, and if we didn't change with it, it was going to get dictated to us, and we potentially would have gone into a prolonged downturn. Instead, we were able to, just 4 years later, come back and contend and win 93 games. But at that moment, from a leadership standpoint, a lonely feeling. Again, the strength and courage of an ownership to support it. But without a doubt, the single toughest moment I've had from a business and leadership standpoint.
Sure, a lot of comments dropping your kids off at school that day.
Yeah. I'm going to take more of a personal tact on that, just really even as it relates to a business-wise or even a career decision. But like I mentioned, I grew up in the Pittsburgh area. I grew up a big hockey fan, so I was a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and started out working at the Civic Arena with the Spirit. Was fortunate enough to get a job going out of college on that end, and then it was owned by the same owner, Edward J. DeBartolo. Ended up working for the Penguins. I figured this was it. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Here's my favorite team in my hometown. And an opportunity came up. I was doing PR work there. Opportunity came up to become number 2 at an indoor soccer league team in Minnesota with a friend of mine I knew there. So I'd never been to Minnesota. Was dating my future wife at that point, but we hadn't been engaged, so I'd have to leave, the market. Had never lived away from home. I went to school at Duquesne in Pittsburgh, had lived on the campus, but never left this, been out of the city. So, sort of the Robert Frost took the road least traveled and made all the difference. And at that point, it was definitely a leap. And I look back now and say, wow, in terms of that type of move. But that road least traveled makes the difference in a lot of cases when you're at the fork in the road for making a big decision.
Thanks.